Croissant Pub to the Mega Match PSN sale. I hope you like playing cool games and saving a lot of money, because that's what I'm here to help you do. You're welcome here anytime. Okay, before we get started in this sale, I don't normally cover the DLC sales because I tend to recommend games that include all of the DLC anyway. But lucky for everyone, including myself, I took a look at the DLC sale this time, and I think they've messed up because there's some VR games included, and they're ridiculously good value. So we'll just go through them quickly before we get on with the proper video. In the Level Up DLC sale, you can pick up Arizona Sunshine Deluxe for a 90% discount for the price of £3.69, which is a phenomenal deal for such a really cool game. It supports aim controller, and it's a really cool zombie apocalypse game with a ton of DLC included. So take a look at that. They also have Mask Maker for a 90% discount at the low price of £1.59, which is an amazing puzzle adventure game where you make masks that transport you to different worlds. Definitely check that out. And finally, there's Sky World, which is on a 95% discount for the price of £1.24, which is another dirt cheap game, and is pretty much the best VR RTS game on PlayStation. So if you like RTS and you've got a VR headset, take a look at that too. I already owned Arizona Sunshine, otherwise I would have picked that up, but I definitely picked up the other two. I like the look of Mask Maker ever since it was released, and at this price you can't go far wrong. Skyworld, I wasn't overly fussed on getting, but at this price, why not? I'm sure I'll find that changed in a settee or something at some point. Anyway, if you've got VR, definitely check them out before they're gone. Okay, now back to the main video. This sale ends on the 15th of March, so that'll be the last day to pick up these deals. Let's look at the games. First up, we have Blair Witch. It was released in 2019, so it's 4 years old, and it's on a 75% discount for the price of £6.24, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal. In this survival horror, a young boy has disappeared in the Black Hills forest of Burkesville, Maryland, and as a former police officer with a troubled past, you take your dog and join the search. But soon the ordinary investigation turns into an endless nightmare for you. This game was made by the Layers of Fear team, which is big praise because that game was legendary when it came out. Everybody that loves horror loved that game, and if you like horror and haven't played it, you should definitely check it out at some point. I'm not sure why they decided to make a Blair Witch game, but that movie was legendary when I was a kid. Everybody knew about it, and some people even thought it was a true story, which is obviously debunked these days. But hey, we didn't have internet back then, so it's not our fault we were dumb. And what's really cool is this game has an original story. So it is based on the classic movie, but they've created a story related to it. So even if you've seen the movie, you wouldn't have spoiled this game, which is great. The only thing I will say is be careful which version you buy, because the deluxe edition is on sale. But all it includes is the soundtrack and an art book, which isn't a lot as far as I'm concerned. And while I'm talking about different versions, there's a VR version as well. So if you really want it in VR, then you might want to wait a while for that to be on sale instead. So if you're a fan of Blair Witch and you like horror games, you should definitely take a look at this game. And if you've never played a horror game before, you can get better deals than this, so you might want to check out some other games instead. We have a fighter next, Chaos Code New Sign of Catastrophe. It was released in 2017, so it's 6 years old, and it's on a 72% discount for the price of £4.47, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal. In this game, you get to play a simple yet flexible, fast-paced 2D fighter. It features 16 characters, customizable moves, character customization, an arcade mode, versus mode, mission mode, 2v2 online multiplayer, although I don't know how active that is, and more as well. I've never heard of this game before, and it's definitely not from a massive fighting franchise, but hey, it looks really good, especially if you're a fan of 2D fighters. It looks like a quality game, and I really like the fact that you can customize the characters. Customizing the color palette for characters just seems like a really cool feature, and I'm surprised more games haven't included it already. Anyway, if you're a fan of fighting games, and you've never heard of this like me, this might just intrigue you, and who knows, you might find a new favorite fighting game. So why not take a look at it, if you're interested. And hey, if you've never played a fighting game before, then I probably wouldn't recommend starting here. It looks really cool, and my gut feeling says it's worth it, but you can get games from much bigger AAA franchises for about this price or less sometimes. So it just makes sense to pick up one of them instead. So if you'd like to pick up one of them, subscribe and I'll help you find them when they go on sale next. Darksiders Genesis is our next game. It was released in 2020, so it's only 3 years old, and it's on an 80% discount for the price of £6.99, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal. In this game, still reeling from the annihilation of the Nephilim, War and Strife have a new assignment: to hunt and defeat the master demons of Lucifer, while unraveling a demonic conspiracy. and it features 2-player offline and online multiplayer, which is really cool. So if you're a fan of isometric RPGs and you like Darksiders, you'll really enjoy this game, so you should definitely take a look at it. And hey, if you've never played an isometric RPG before, then I don't think I'd recommend starting here, as there is a little bit more than you can pay for some other ones, so you're probably better off starting elsewhere. So why not subscribe and you won't miss them when they come on sale. We're going old school next. Fire Pro Wrestling World Deluxe Edition. It was released in 2018, so it's 5 years old, and it's on an 85% discount for the price of £11.24, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a really good deal, especially as this edition includes 3 DLC, the Fire Promoter, Fighting Road to 2017, NJPW Junior Heavyweight Championship, and additional scenario DLC as well. So you get a really good version of the game, with a ton of content included, which is really cool. This game is based on the old school classic, and features ultimate customization, where even the ring can be customized, and you can also download and share your own wrestlers online, and it includes 4-player online multiplayer as well. So there's a lot of fun to be had downloading wrestlers from online and also making your own and putting them up for other people to play with. So if you're a fan of old school wrestling games that are 2D and not 3D, this is the ultimate game for you. And if you're a fan of wrestling and you're willing to overlook the 2D graphics, then there's a lot of good fun to be had in this series. You might just want to take a look at it. We're going to Mars next. Maybe. Lifeless Planet Premier Edition. It was released in 2016, so it's 7 years old, and it's on an 80% discount for the price of £3.19, which is a really good deal, as this version is remastered with new original audio and an additional in-game text audio log system as well, so you get a bit more story for your money, which is pretty cool. In this adventure game, you land on an alien planet that is supposed to be rich in life, but it turns out to be barren, with signs that humans have already been here before. Stalked by a mysterious figure, you must explore to find out where you are and what's going on. I really like the look of this little adventure game, and the story is really intriguing to me. I really think it'd be fun to explore and find out what's going on. So if you're as intrigued as me, then why not take a look at it? I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you've never played an adventure game like this before, then at this price you might want to take a chance, especially if you're intrigued by the story as I am. It looks like a really cool little game at a pretty decent price, so why not check it out? We have a visual novel next. ReZero Starting Life in Another World, The Prophecy of the Throne. It was released in 2021, so it's 2 years old, and it's on an 80% discount for the price of £9.99, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal, especially for an anime franchise game and a visual novel. They're usually pretty pricey. In a brand new ReZero storyline, supervised by Tapei Nakatsuki, the royal selection has been postponed as a mysterious 6th candidate appears seeking the throne for themselves. And the game features character designs by Shinichiro Otsuka, who designed the original characters, so that's really cool. It looks like they've gone to a lot of effort to make this game really authentic for the fans, which is nice to see. Visual novels may not be for everyone, and ReZero may not be for everyone either, but if you're a fan of both, you should definitely pick this up. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun with it, and you'll know if this game's for you or not, and if it is, definitely take a look at it. I'm sure you'll really enjoy yourself. And hey, if you've never played a visual novel before, then I'm not sure I'd recommend starting with this one. There's a ton of ReZero games and stories and seasons, so it's a huge amount of story to get involved in. So you're much better off starting with a visual novel that's self-contained, rather than having all of the baggage of all of the different stories and backstory and all of that you might have missed out on. Plus, you can get other visual novels cheaper than this as well. So if you're looking for another visual novel to start with, then subscribe and I'll help you find them when they go on sale next. Next up is my star buy, Sniper Elite VR. It was released in 2021, so it was 2 years old, and it's on a 70% discount for the price of £7.49, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a really great deal, especially for a VR game, and a VR game that looks this good. This game supports Move controllers. They're optional, so you don't need them, but it's great to see that they're supported. It makes shooting games much more fun. And on top of that, it supports the aim controller, which I love. If you own one of them, you'll definitely want to look at this game. In this game, you get to fight against the invading Axis in southern Italy in 1943 by using stealth and authentic weaponry in the Italian resistance. It features an exclusive campaign with 18 missions, free movement, X-ray kill cam, which is famous for the series, and a realistic ballistic physics system as well, making sure that those long sniper shots you take are really rewarding. This is from an amazing series of World War II sniper games, and they're really fun to play. Now, when I seen the VR version, I just assumed it would be some really cool, but quite limited sniper simulator. but it's not. It looks like it's got a full campaign with free movement, actual levels to play through, where you get to sneak behind enemy lines, set up your shot, and then take it to get your sniper kills. Can't recommend this more. If you like VR and you like shooting games, definitely check this out. Especially if you've got an aim controller, you'll be doing yourself a favour. It looks like a really amazing game, and I'm surprised more people haven't talked about it. And hey, if you haven't played a VR shooter before, then this might be a good place to start. Most of the shooters are zombie based, so if you want one that's not, you don't have many options. It's pretty much this, Farpoint, or Blood and Truth, and they're all about this price or more expensive. So it basically comes down to what theme do you like. So if you're a fan of World War II, or you like the idea of being a sniper, you should definitely take a look at this. I'm looking at it and considering it. It looks like a ton of fun. Highly recommended for anyone, I think. So why not take a look? Like I said, it's my star buy. It's definitely worth your time to take a look at. You'll probably really love it. Up next, we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It was released in 2019, so it's 4 years old, and it's on an 80% discount for the low price of £4.49, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a really good deal. And I'm sure it's nothing to do with the fact it was just given away free on PS Plus. I'm sure it's a pure accident that they dropped the price straight after that. But hey, if you don't have PS Plus, definitely take a look at this deal. Disney may have ruined the movies and the TV shows, but the games are still going strong. Well, some of them anyway. Okay, it's just this one, but hey, at least we've got this right. Otherwise Star Wars would be completely dead, and that would be a crying shame. In this third-person action adventure, you get to enter the epic world of Star Wars and play as an abandoned Padawan who must find a way to complete his training, develop new Force abilities, and master the lightsaber, all while staying one step ahead of the Empire to save your own life, while doing as much good as possible. This game was beloved when it came out. After all the rubbish Star Wars games that have come out lately, this was a shining star amongst the rest. It's a really good game. It's like a cross between Uncharted and Dark Souls, which should excite you, because it's not as difficult as Dark Souls, but it's got a really good action-adventure story with some really good combat. So if you're a Star Wars fan or you like lightsabers, definitely check this game out. You'll love it, I promise. And hey, if you've never played a Star Wars game before, or a third-person action-adventure, then you'll really enjoy this game if you like Star Wars. And if you're not a fan of Star Wars, you'll probably really enjoy it anyway, but there are other options for you as well. So you could take a look if you're not sure. And the final game I have for you is Styx, Shards of Darkness. It was released in 2017, so it's 6 years old, and it's on a 90% discount for the low price of £1.59, which is dirt cheap, and well worth the money for this game. This is a stealth action game, where you play as Styx the Goblin, exploring huge environments, assassinating or sneaking past enemies, while using an array of lethal upgradable abilities, weapons, traps, and items in order to complete your mission. It also features 2-player online co-op, which is awesome. More games should include that, especially for games like this. So if you ever played the old Tenchu games, you'll really enjoy this game. It's basically similar gameplay, but much cheaper, and no one's ever heard of it usually. It's an awesome game series, it's a decent price. If you like those sorts of stealth games, definitely take a look at it. And if you've never played a stealth assassination game like this before, but you like the sound of it, why not check it out? They're a lot of fun. If you've got the patience, you'll really enjoy them. Definitely take a look at it. And that's all the games I have for the Mega March PSN sale. Now before I close out this video, I'm going to give you some first impressions on the PSVR 2. I picked mine up the other day, and I haven't used it much, but I just thought I'd give you my first impressions. And then later on, I'll come back to you with more information when I've used it more, and then I'll have more solid opinions on it. Okay guys, welcome to some show and tell. This is the PSVR 2, the new one. This is the PSVR 1, the first one. Just so we're clear on what I've got, this is the first model of the PSVR 1. So it has a cable that you can replace, but it is bulkier and more of a sort of pain to work with, although I don't find it a pain at all. But some people do. The only other differences between this and the second model is that the second model has the buttons moved around a little bit. So there are some differences, but not a huge amount in general. Apart from the split box for the second one, can't pass through 4K. So if you've got the first model, you can't display 4K on the TV as long as you're using it. Which is why they made the changes, I guess. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is this. You're probably saying, that's a motion controller for the VR. No, this isn't. This is an original PS3 Move controller. I had these for the PS3, and I've used them for the VR ever since. I've never bought new ones. Now you can tell, because the port is the very old USB port.
well, you barely ever see these anymore. But in any case, it shouldn't make a difference, but just for clarity and information, these aren't the ones they made for the VR, these are the original models. So there may be differences, I don't know. But I've always used these. Okay, so this is a first impressions. I haven't used both extensively. The first one I've used a lot, but the second one is new. I don't have many games for it. I haven't played it a lot. This is not a final decision. Early impressions only, alright? So don't get too addicted to whatever opinion I have. Okay, so the similarities. They're pretty similar in size, but you may notice something different with my first model. Yes, the pads on mine are coated in PU leather. That's because the rubber on the originals flake off eventually. So I reupholstered this myself with leather. Well, PU leather. In any case, that was really cool. The difference between this and the new one is that this is squishy. This has foam inside it. It's pretty stereotypical of anything like a cushion seat or whatever. This one is, you can look at that. Can you see the squish? It's like an empty tire. It's pure rubber, very little texture to it. It's got some sort of a texture, but it's not like a pattern like the original had. And inside, there are some like squishy plastic ridges, kind of feel like they're on springs or something. It's very weird. It's not uncomfortable to wear. It's just, I don't know. I don't have as much faith in these as I do the original. What I'm worried about is with this, I can reupholster it and replace it as many times as I want. I can even replace the foam with memory foam or something if I wanted to. But with this, if this punctures or wears out, I have no idea what I can do about that. I'm hoping they're replaceable. I'm not really willing to try and rip them off to find out. But I'm hoping that they are easily replaceable and that Sony will sell replaceables at some point. But that was one of the first things I noticed, just because I was like, not too sure about that. The second thing is, the headbands work the same as the first one, more or less. There's very little difference in the way the headbands function in general. Same with this one. Now in general, even though they look the same size, the new one is smaller, is sleeker, and it feels a little smaller. I haven't had any problems with fitting it or comfortability or anything like that, but it definitely is smaller, and it feels a little less premium, I have to say. Now, on to my first thing that I hate about the second one. That doesn't mean I hate the unit, early impressions, this just really annoyed me. The USB cable is fixed to the headset. Non-removable. Now this is basically just a standard USB-C cable, so why they decided to fix it to the headset, I have no idea. It's the most moronic thing I've ever seen. If I stand on this cable, or a dog chews it, or I just wrap it up the wrong way, and it breaks internally. Trust me, I've got a background in IT, USB cables do just break randomly through general usage. Now I was hoping that I could just buy a USB-C cable and replace it, because you can buy some really nice ones for about £5 on sale that you can tow a car with and they still function. So I was like, no problem, I'll buy some really cool ones in whatever colour I fancy, because why not? And it won't be a problem. But no. If you break that cable, your unit's dead. So that's my first annoyance. Again, they did that with the second model of the first one, but I didn't like that either. Especially now it's just a USB-C cable, there's no excuse. That really annoyed me. I was not happy about that at all. Right, on to the next part. Most people hate this. They hate these controllers. They're like, oh, they're not designed for VR, and they need analog sticks, and that ruins VR in PlayStation. I sort of agree. I don't have a problem with them. I find them very good. I have no problems with the tracking, ever. Like, if at all. I've played for 7 hours at a time. I have no issue with the tracking. Almost ever. Occasionally, your hands will lose tracking, and I mean very occasionally, and your hands will start, like, doing this in the camera. All you have to do is put your hands behind you, so the camera can't see it, it'll pop up saying I can't see the controls, and then you bring them back and they just work again. Very simple, no issues. But again, I agree, no analog sticks makes it annoying for some things. The new controllers. Now, first impressions with these, they feel plasticky, kinda like a cheap toy. Now, I don't care about that in general. If they function, I couldn't care less what they feel like. If they work, they work. That'll do me. The problem I have is I don't have big hands, but look how cramped up my bottom two fingers are. They're really jammed in there. Really jammed in there. And if I try to reach the buttons, look how high my thumb is. If I want to reach that lower button, I have to do that. And can you see? My hand is jamming on the inner ring. I don't like that. I can barely reach that. Now, to work around that, you can hit it with the middle, and then the top one with your thumb. So you can rock it for both. Now that's fine. It works. But that restriction of movement, I'm just I don't get it. Why is that there? Now, what I would have done if I was them was this here. I would have extended this out to about here. Because by having your hand further up, I've got full range of movement now in this thumb. I can do wherever I want, and I'd have all the space in the world up here. And I'd also have more room for my fingers. Now, I don't know if that's because they don't want the ring lining up with your wrist joint. I don't know if that's the reason. But it kind of feels like they're designed for kids. They feel child-sized. Now, for me, I don't have big hands, and I can use them like this. With my adaptation of rocking my thumb for those, it's fine for me. But I expected better. Sony are usually really good on their design, and I was a bit disappointed in that. So if you've got big hands, be warned. Now, the next thing may not be an issue at all, right? But if you look at the motion controllers, or move controllers, there are 4 face buttons, the move button, the PS button, share, and options, and the trigger. So you've got 4, 5, 6 buttons you can use for games. These have 2. And I know what you're saying. You can click the analog stick in. Yes, you can. It's got the grip button. Yes, it does. And it's got the trigger. Yes, it does. So if we're being generous, it's got 5. That's still not enough, I don't think. Because the problem I don't know how they're going to get around is that you're using that for grabbing stuff. So that's not going to be used for anything else other than grabbing stuff. The trigger's going to be used for guns, that sort of thing. So for utility, you've just got these and the click. So, in games like The Walking Dead, where you've got a backpack and loads of items and stuff, I don't know how it's going to work for swapping weapons around. Like with the knife, you can flip the knife up and down in The Walking Dead. There's plenty of buttons on the old controllers to do that with. You're limited here. You have very few buttons, which also means that it's going to be difficult to port things to this. Like if you were like, are they going to port the PS3 catalog to VR? Not with these controls, they're not. There's no chance. You'd have to get really inventive with what you did with it. So like I said, that's not a problem per se. It's a concern I have. Because without a lot of buttons, it limits what can be done with them. So, I don't know. I kind of wish maybe if this was bigger, they could have had 2 more buttons on. Oh, see, I can't even move my thumb. I'm jamming up again. They could have 2 more. Oh, jeez. They could have 2 more buttons on this side as well, and that would be better. Now, because how awkward these are to get to as well, I haven't used it a lot yet, so I'm speculating. But what I don't want to be in is a situation in like The Walking Dead or something, where I'm surrounded by zombies, and I'm trying to find the right button to switch something. And I can't because I get jammed on the frame or something. That will annoy me. That will really annoy me if that happens. Because again, with these that everyone hates, I have no problem. Yes, the movement isn't as good, but the whole holding a button and tilting to move slightly works really well. I've used it a lot. It's perfectly functional. The other thing that concerns me with these is range of tracking. With the originals, if it's in the camera, it can track it. So it can track anything from below my waist up to as high as I can reach. With these, it doesn't detect it as well. It works fine when it can see it, but out to my side, slightly behind me, really far above me, it doesn't have as wide of a range of tracking. So that could be a problem. If game developers don't work around that, they need to make sure everything that you need to interact with is within this field of view. Now, so far I've only played No Man's Sky, and I had a lot of problems driving the vehicles. Mainly because if I'm looking up out the window and I'm controlling the controls lower down, it would sometimes lose track of them. Again, I haven't played a lot, and No Man's Sky was designed prior to this, so I'm going to give it a pass for that. It wasn't designed for VR2, it was ported to it, so I'm not unfair. I'm not going to come down on it for that. But going forward, if I see games that don't respect the range of motion tracking, I'm not going to be pleased. They need to make sure that it tracks well and you don't lose tracking, especially in hairy situations, or it's going to be frustrating. Now, something that's a bit of a preference, I guess? I don't know. With the old controllers, you grab stuff with the trigger, so I'm used in VR to grabbing stuff with the trigger. In this, you use this side button, which is fine. That works fine. But it's not intuitive for me at the moment because I'm not used to it. And I'll get used to it, so that's not a problem, I'll adapt, whatever, But I don't like that it's on the side. I don't like that it's a sideways squeezing motion. I wish it was a trigger here at the front so that you had two triggers. Because with the original, the trigger for grabbing is really light. You barely touch it. So you can hold stuff for long periods of time and there's no strain on your finger. It's really comfortable and pleasant. With this, you have to maintain that sideways pressure. So if, for instance, I'm holding a gun for a long period or something, that could get really annoying. I hope at least that games give you the option to squeeze to pick up and then you don't have to hold it and then you can squeeze to drop again. That would be much better. Because having to maintain pressure on that while aiming and stuff and fumbling with the buttons, if they're going to do that, it should have been a trigger at the front. That would have been much smarter. But again, that's a preference. They can work around it. And I'll get used to the button placement and whatever, but I just think a trigger would have been better if they expect you to hold on to things for a long time. Because maintaining that sideways pressure while trying to get a comfy finger hold and then working the trigger and trying to fumble the buttons as well where your thumb's getting jammed and stuff, it's even here on the analog stick, your thumb gets close to the rim and it touches it. It's just not ideal. I'd rather use it like this just to avoid that. So those are my early impressions for the controllers. Now, the last thing I want to say on that is I'm sure a lot of people will say, hey, those original controllers are garbage. The PSVR 1 has the worst controllers. Categorically, you are incorrect. The PSVR 1 has the best controller ever designed for any VR headset ever. And you're angry right now, and you're thinking, you don't know what you're talking about. Let me introduce you to the aim controller. Now this lovely piece of kit was released for the VR1 and it is the most innovative and groundbreaking VR controller ever created. It is a full game controller. It has the face buttons here. It has the right analog stick. It has a D-pad. It has the left analog stick. It has the share and the option buttons right there. On the side here is R1, triggers R2, down here full R1 and L1 and L2, sorry. It's a full controller. It's all of the benefits of the new controllers, but with the range of tracking that the original has. I've played games with this where you hold the controller and you look down the sight for aiming, while also moving like an FPS. This is undoubtedly the best VR controller that's ever been created. And why no one's ripped this off on PC, I have no idea. They're nuts. This is the best controller ever made, and it's for the first one. Now, obviously, they can't use that for the second one, because it doesn't support the camera, which is fine. Not going to dwell on that. But it would be nice for them to make a second version of this. If they made one of that tracked like these do, that would be awesome, especially for games like Pavlov. Oh my god, that game would be amazing with this. That would be the biggest innovation in VR. If they really pushed that, and if they did some even if, Xbox owns Call of Duty now, so that's never going to happen. But if they got a big name like Call of Duty to support that for VR and made a VR multiplayer, or even they just got Pavlov or something on board, made a big deal of it, I think that would be a really smart push for VR. So those are my early impressions of the headset. In general, the technology is impressive, but not utilized a lot right now. A lot of the games don't use it. No Man's Sky doesn't use foveated rendering, or the eye tracking in general, which is kind of frustrating because it's a pain to set that up. But I'll talk about that as we go along in this video. So right now, these are the two headsets. The second one didn't blow me away as much as the first did. It's a definite improvement though. Not in every way, and it's not better at everything, but it has significant leaps in technology. You can't deny that. On to the rest of the video, I guess.
Okay, so now the show and tell's over. I'm going to put some footage of me playing No Man's Sky in the background. This was captured using the PS5 capture feature, so it's straight from the console, and that's exactly what you see. Keep an eye on it though, because I noticed something, and I want to know if you noticed what I noticed. So, there's not going to be an exam or anything, but keep an eye on it, see if you think something looks a bit odd. Anyway, the other thing I noticed was it didn't come fully charged, the controllers I mean, so I charged them for as long as I could be bothered to before I played it, and when I started playing, they had about between half and 3/4 charge. It's hard to tell with these, it had 3 out of 4 bars. Anyway, I played for like a half hour just to give it a quick try, and at the end of that, the battery life on the controllers was 1 bar. So if I'm being generous, it used nearly half the battery life of the controllers. Now, I'm hoping that it was mistaken and it wasn't as fully charged as I thought it was, especially since they were half charged. In any case, I'm going to charge them fully, and then I'm going to use it a lot more before I give any more opinions on that. But all I'm going to say is, the Move controllers, I don't even know when I charge them. I charge them every 3 to 4 months, and they last forever. I can play for 7 hours at a time, and it doesn't even notice the battery loss. They're ridiculously good on battery efficiency. So if these new controllers don't at least last 12 hours on a full charge, I'm not going to be very happy with that. It's going to annoy the hell out of me if I have to cut short playing in VR because the batteries aren't good enough. Oh, that's going to be annoying if that's the case. Anyway, I don't know if that is the case right now. It's just something I noticed, and it's something I thought I'd mention. I'll report back when I've tried it more and played for longer amounts of time, and then I can give you an accurate idea of what the battery life is like. Now, the other thing that really annoyed me is that there's fancy new tech in the new one, which is great. It lets you mark out an area of play, and then that's your play area. Now, what I don't like is that if that area you mark out is not 2 by 2 meters, it blocks you from using room scale VR completely. It just disables it as an option, and what it does is it puts what it calls a temporary play area for you. Now, what I consider that to be is a cage, because what it does is it puts a pillar around you, and it's like, stay in that pillar. And that would be fine if it wasn't very restrictive. In No Man's Sky, when I was trying to control the vehicles, taking half a step forward to be closer to the controls meant that when I was reaching and controlling those controls, it was popping up with a red wall where it was like, hang on, you're near the edge of your cage, get back in your cage. And I'm like, F you, this cage is tiny and I can go 2 full steps in any direction without hitting anything. So stop putting up big red walls in my world and annoying me, because I know I can take 2 full steps without hitting anything. Now, alright, my play area isn't what it wants it to be, it's not big enough to meet the requirements. But with the first one, if it can see you, It tracks you and it doesn't care. I can play things like The Walking Dead in the first one, and I know full well I can take 2 steps in any direction without hitting anything, even with my arms outstretched. So I can play, I can walk around, I can sidestep zombies, I can do what I want within the restrictions of my play area. But even though I have the same play area with the new headset, I can't do that now because it says it's not good enough and it won't allow me to override it. Now, I'm not dumb, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to redraw the play area and I'm going to add like a meter in all directions just to make it bigger. Now, you're going to say that's dumb. It's not going to give you a warning when you're near the edge. Yes, you're correct. It's not going to do that. But guess what? I had no problems with that in the first one, and I'd rather be able to walk around a bit in the woods without big red walls coming up all the time. So that's what I'm going to do, and if that makes it a lot more enjoyable, that's fine with me. Having it pop up in the real world to warn you you're going to hit something is a really cool feature, but it's also a pointless feature if it just tells you it's not good enough and it won't allow you to draw your custom area. There's no point having it if you can't use it. It might as well just say, do you have 2x2 meters or not? And it put up a 2x2 meter cage or the temporary cage. If those are the only 2 options, what's the point in going to all of the, oh look at all the features we have, when they're pointless? Because it's either 2x2 meters or nothing. It's a completely wasted feature. I hope they update it. I hope they allow you to override it. I don't expect it to allow me to play room scale VR because I don't have the space. That's fine, but I expect it to let me wander within the space that I have and the space that I've told it I have. Because if it's not going to do that, why bother having the feature? It might as well just be stand up, sit down, and that's the end of it. But again, I'll come back to you on this subject, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the area away from the direction I play in, so behind me, so I know that I can move forward until it comes up with the barrier, but I can also go backwards relative to that barrier without killing anything. That's how I've always done it in the first one, and I've had no problems. I've never tripped over anything, I've never stood on anything, I've never damaged or hit anything, ever. So that's what I'm going to do, and I think it'll work for me, by bypassing the stupid restrictions on the headset. Okay, let's get back to the capture footage I took. Have you noticed anything weird about it yet? Like maybe you feel like you're leaning to one side or something? Well, I know it's pretty quick. It only captures the right eye, which is completely useless. Oh my god. So the left side of the picture is the center, the right side is my view on the right of my right eye, and you don't get the left side of the view. So when you're in vehicles and you're looking straight through the middle of the window, you only get most of the controls ahead of you and the view to your right. This is a joke. There's no point having capture footage if it's completely unusable. Pretty much the only way I would use this footage is if I cut off the right side and made it 4x3, and even then, it's still not centered. You're still not seeing what the person's looking at. Why? Now I'm going to be generous, and I'm going to assume the reason this is because there's no splitter box anymore. Because with the VR1, the splitter box handled all of the video, and I think that combined the right and left eye, and you ended up with like a circle-ish view. Which wasn't ideal, but you could see everything the user could see, and it was centered from their perspective, so it was functional if nothing else. But just having the right eye, oh my god. I really hope that they fix this. I really hope that they fix the capture so that it captures a 4x3 or a widescreen of the center view by combining the two. Otherwise, just don't bother, it's a waste of time. And lastly, I have a list of things that it doesn't do, which is just very disappointing. Sony, I'm not angry, I'm just very disappointed in you. Firstly, there's no 3D Blu-ray support, which I know in North America no one cares about because they don't sell them there anymore. But in Europe they do, and one of the biggest things I use my VR1 for, which I didn't even buy it for, was watching movies. And VR Blu-rays and 3D Blu-rays in VR, what are they good. I challenge anyone to watch Pacific Rim 3D in VR and not be impressed. With the surround sound built in, it's an amazing way to watch movies. I love it, and I use it a ton, because guess what? I've got a 7.1 surround sound system at home, which I love for watching movies on. But sometimes you just want to watch Die Hard or 11 o'clock, and you don't want to have to knock out another neighbor over a stupid argument. So, this is the best option. You can sit in your VR at 2 AM if you want, sound cranked up, and have a really nice surround sound experience with a massive VR cinema. I love it. It's a benefit I never even considered when I bought the first one, but I use it a ton, and it's really good for it. The fact that they didn't enable 3D Blu-ray support, it's a small thing, but it's just laziness. On the original, they had to update the firmware to allow it later on, so I'm hoping they do the same here. But I doubt they will, because, I don't know, if they're too lazy to just port it over from the PS4, the likelihood of them going out of their way to add it now is like, I don't know, it's like they don't care or something. And while we're talking about media playback, you can watch Blu-rays, which is great, just without the 3D. It literally says if you put a 3D Blu-ray in, your device does not support this. And I'll edit out what I was going to say next. Now, there's no media player on PS5, which has been a stupid thing ever since it came out. It's one of those things where it's like, is this supposed to be a media entertainment device or not? And you don't even have a media player built in. Yes, it has one. No, there's no app for it. So you can use it, but it's inconvenient to use it. And they really should just put more effort into this. They really should. I mean, it doesn't even have DLNA support anymore, which I know is an old standard. But guess what? I have a lot of tech stuff in my house, including a DLNA server that also serves stuff through web browsers and other things, but the PS5 can't pick that up. Whereas on my PS4, if I load up my PS4 media player with VR, I have access to my entire movie catalogue and all of the TV series or whatever else I've got on there at the moment. So that's a really annoying thing that they don't include any support for that. And tied in with that, they don't even have any app support. And now I'm not saying there's no apps at all, and that they're not thinking of making apps, but it just launched, and there's nothing. There's no VR player apps, there's no VR media player, there's no big screen, there's nothing. I'm very disappointed. They haven't really tried to cultivate a rounded entertainment package for this VR. And they're pretty much saying if you want to watch media on this, wait for someone to hack it for PC, and then you'll actually get to use it properly. All of this, though, is kind of like situational, because if you don't watch a lot of movies, or you don't watch a lot of TV series, or you don't sideload a lot of stuff, then none of this is going to make any difference to you. All you're going to want to know is it a good VR headset? And the answer is yes, it's a very good VR headset. The picture quality and clarity is far superior to the first one, but that's pretty much the only big plus for me. The picture is way better, it's clearer, it's got really cool technology that I'm hoping to see something take advantage of at some point. But outside of that, it hasn't blown my mind like I was expecting it to. So far, the feature set is almost identical with the first one. You're just getting a better picture, and it works in different ways. So if you have the first one, and you really love it, I'm not sure I can recommend the second one. It's going to die on the games that come out for it. So, until there's a lot of games out for it and the prices come down, I would say it's not really worth it right now. But I will make a promise to you. I played The Walking Dead on the first one, and it's getting a free upgrade to PS5 and PSVR 2 in the middle of March. So, when that comes out, I will replay the beginning of that game from the start, and then I'll have a proper review where I'll actually compare my experience on both of them. And then we'll see what I got wrong, what I didn't get wrong, and hopefully I'll be really impressed with the experience in it. But for right now, I kind of prefer the first one. The second one isn't uncomfortable to use, but the first one is definitely more comfortable. It's more robust, and I've got a lot of good time on it. I know I can sit in that for 8 hours, and it's like I'm not even feeling any different. It's great. I haven't had that test yet with the second one, but I'm expecting it to hold up well, as it is comfortable when you use it. Just not quite as comfortable as the first one. It's those pads. I've got questions about those pads, and the longevity of them, which, who's gonna know about that until another 3 years from now, right? And in general, my biggest, downside to the new one is that USB cable. I can't believe it's affixed to the headset. It's basic stuff, just all they had to do was have a little port on the side where you plug it in and then you hook it around some hooks to stop it getting tugged out, and that's all you'd have to do. It would have been easily replaceable and would have secured the unit to work for decades. But with the way it is, it's kind of like if I knew someone that was really good at splicing wires, I'd have them cut it off and put a USB port on it, and then I could just plug whatever cable I want into it and DIY my own solution around it. Anyway, if they made a version 2 of it in a few years and you could replace the USB-C cable, ooh, I'd be tempted to change. On a side note, I hope they start selling the controllers separate as well, because at some point if someone breaks them, you're going to need to want to buy more. And, because of my concerns with them, I hope they make like a PSVR 2 XL controller, where it's the same thing but like just upscaled a little bit to give you more room for your hands, and just for it to be more comfortable in general. It's not uncomfortable for the controllers either right now, I just have ergonomic issues with it. And again, I'll come back to you on that, because right now it's just early impressions and I don't know how it'll play out over extended play. So let's all put a pin in it for now, and I'll update you in the future sometime. These are my first impressions. Let me know what you think. Am I paranoid? Am I biased? And I'm just out to get the second VR headset? I don't think so, because I'm betting on it being the future for VR, so I just expected more, Sony. You hit it out the park with the first one, and then you've kind of sat back in your laurels and let things slide a little for the second. But you never know, it's good enough right now, and things could always change in the future. Or maybe they won't and I'll just learn to live with them. We'll see. But right now, I'm much more interested in buying all of the cheap discount VR games for the first one, and having a lot of fun with that, especially while the games are cheap. There's so much more mileage to be had with those. The first one is a great value. Yeah, on a side note, if you don't have either and you just want a cheap option, pick up the first one. It's really good, it's got a ton of games for it, you can pick them up really cheap right now. So if you don't have a PS5 especially, or you don't really care about the upgraded picture quality or graphics, you could, just pick up the old one. It's a really good value proposition, especially with the game's catalogue. Anyway, I've rambled enough now, so that'll be the end of this early impressions of the PSVR 2. My mind isn't blown, but it's not an awful headset either. I'll be back with more thoughts. I'll see you then. Okay, and now it's time to end the video. What did you think of the games I picked? Did I pick good ones or did I pick bad ones? And what about the star buy? Did it deserve it, or should some other game have got it instead? Leave all your complaints down in the comments, and we can talk about it later. Anyway, I hope you guys found some games you're interested in. But more importantly, I hope you saved a lot of money. I'll see you in the next sale. Au revoir.